sick about selling. And all he kept saying was, you gotta have a full pipeline. You gotta have, well, that's marketing, pal. Let me tell you something, all of you marketers out there. You know all the big marketers, all the successful ones, they come to me to sell, to learn how to sell, to increase their ability to communicate their ideas. Because here's the deal. Marketing brings people into the funnel, brings people into your pipeline. That's step one. And yes, you want to be an expert marketer. And thankfully, with the platforms we have today with online marketing, you can make a bloody fortune as an online marketer. But the ones that really make money, they've schooled themselves in selling. How do you close the deal? How do you close the deal? Marketing brings people into the funnel. So I kept saying, okay, great, good. You're in your funnel now. You're in your funnel now, and it's full, it's packed. What do you do first? What do you say second? What do you do next? That's what sales is all about. Guess what? There is a strategy. Like, there's no strategy. Like, here's my product. This is how much it costs, right? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, really. But I'm so glad to be back doing this. You know, I stopped, right? My shoulder. I couldn't write on a whiteboard anymore. I had my shoulder replaced. Yeah, I got a metal ball now in there, artificial joint. And now look at this. I'm golden. You see, Dick? You mind if I call you Dick? Dick? My associates here would very much like to see you have a little accident. But I tell him no. I tell him no. I tell him I'll take care of him myself, I tell him. You want to know why? I want you on my side. And let me tell you what my side is. My side is a lifetime of action and adventure with no clocks to punch. It's treating that gal of yours 100%. She should be treated like a princess, protected like a baby. 15,000 clams. 15,000 clams. It's a deal. Welcome to new waters, Dick. We're gonna run one hell of a ship with you aboard. There's a big world out there. It's for sale, all of it. There are billions to be made. The only competition? Idiots. You see, Dick? You mind if I call you Dick? Dick, you see, Dick? I'm a king. 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 Not because of my eminent features, but because I occupy a certain place in the socio-symbolic edifice. That is because others treat me like a king. I stole the keys to my dungeon under the eyes of guards, and you'll be disappointed to learn that all of my success, all of it, can be attributed to my granddad, the inventor of pants. I stopped at the mighty river. I sucked the damn thing dry. I may have girl bossed a bit too close to the sun, but that's on me. If you want to be a woman, go be a bitch. This is my house. My town, my lawn, my problem, my car, my job, my opinion, my trauma, my pain. What I want to say, everything is mine. Are you ready? To become a protagonist? So, when Einstein died in 1955, his brain was removed during an unsanctioned autopsy at a hospital in Princeton. Later, at the University of Pennsylvania, this pathologist named Thomas Stoltz Harvey sliced it up for research purposes and he kept some of the slivers to himself. Then, in 1988, Harvey, who'd since been stripped of his medical license, he moved to Lawrence, home of the University of Kansas, where he presented one of those slivers to local author William S. Burroughs, after whose death in 1997, it passed into possession. I'm gonna stop now. I just don't want to get anyone into trouble. Let's just say let's just say that when I was in Lawrence teaching at KU, this was a thing that still happened. Hazing was also an homage. You scooped a bit of Einstein's brain out of the jar and you shook off the excess formaldehyde. Then you put some salt in a crook of your thumb and licked it, after which you took down a shot of cheap, room temperature tequila and sucked on a brain till your mouth went numb. Until the formaldehyde paralyzed your lips and tongue and you couldn't be understood. You couldn't even feel yourself trying to make language. Did you know that when the first porn movie was screened in 1897, the audience thought the girl would jump out of the screen and fuck them? Yeah. He explained the concept of television to me. He's so arrogant, you know. Fully immersed in his own myth. Guy disappeared right up his own ass. Climbed the mountain just to slide all the way down. I could hardly bear to talk to him. He's so arrogant. I mean, that particular combination of timidity and arrogance, it sets my teeth on edge. He's so arrogant. I mean, anyone really who speaks quietly and shrivels up in company is unbelievably arrogant. You know, he acts shy, but he's not. He's scared. He loves himself, he hates himself. He loves himself, he hates himself. A very tense situation, okay? It's people like me who have to carry on, pretend to be modest. It's the most embarrassing thing in the world, really. A man who presents himself at his worst to get laughs, to free himself from his hang-ups. Everything he does is therapeutic, 100%. He's so arrogant. This is the world's largest oil processing plant, located in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. Early on Saturday, September 14th, a series of explosions rocked the facility, and the world woke to see it burning. But while the world was looking over here, energy traders on Wall Street and elsewhere were also looking over here, and here, and here, and here, at thousands of storage sites around the world where companies and countries stockpile oil. What's inside these tanks can be valuable information for traders who make big bets based on how much supply is available and where in the world it's located. For traders, an event like this one can be an opportunity. Orbital Insight is a company that estimates the tank's contents using satellite imagery, artificial intelligence, and a lot of complicated math. Orbital is at the vanguard of firms that sell data to energy companies and others who are looking to anticipate oil price moves. To get their hands on the data, the first thing this company had to do was find as many of these tanks as it could. Employees trained computers to spot them by feeding them image after image after image after image of oil tanks. Once the computers got the picture, they scanned the satellite imagery and found more than 25,000 tanks around the world. The company continues to collect images of these tanks, images its computers then examine to estimate the contents. The key to doing that lies in the shadows, particularly those cast upon the tops of the tanks. So floating roof tank goes up and down according to the volume of oil that's inside of a tank, and that's done to prevent the vapor space from forming. That will be very bad in terms of explosion risks. Orbital's computers measure the shadows cast on and around the area of each tank. Shadow cast to the outside is used to determine the size of each tank. Shadow cast inside the structure is used to determine how much oil is inside the tank. Generally, the bigger the shadow, the less oil is inside. Orbital then adds up the volumes and compares them over time, noting when stockpiles grow or shrink in different regions. The company is able to do this quickly, beating official reports by weeks, sometimes even months. Knowing how much oil is out there where its stockpile is useful to a range of businesses. Energy producers use it to decide whether to drill wells. Refiners that turn crude into products like gasoline and jet fuel want to know when to buy their main ingredient. Hedge funds and other speculators simply want to make money. Predicting changes in the availability and thus the price of oil can be incredibly lucrative. They're always looking for ways to gauge oil supplies. They count the rigs that are drilling wells and measure what's passing through pipelines. They aim cameras on import and export loading docks and count tankers moving through waterways. Before the attacks on Saudi Arabia, Orbital observed a lot of shrinking shadows on top of the kingdom's oil tanks, suggesting that it was building up its stockpiles. But the company didn't look there. They looked here, where tanks were full, and here, and here, and here, which were also well stocked, and here, and here, and here, where the shadows were growing as imports from here and here dwindled. Meanwhile, traders placed their bets. But I got interested in mind reading and fortune telling, you know? fake fortune telling. And I got to know a lot of old fakes who retired as millionaires, you know. And they told me their secrets, how you do it. There are these things that are called cold readings. Cold reading, what's that? Cold reading is you warm up the sucker by telling him things that he says, how could he ever know that? You see, you say between the ages of 13 and 15, a great change came in your life. Well, that happens in everyone's life, you know. He says, he came in and told me things he couldn't have seen. You got a scar on your knee. Well, everybody fell down and has a scar on their knee. Those are cold readings, you see. Now, the point about this is that after they all warmed up, they're still amazed by this knee bit and the rest of it. They start telling you. Because you just say, oh, is it? And then you see from their face, it is, and then you tell it back. Anyway, I was bored. I was playing in Kansas City with Catherine Cornell one time. We didn't have any matinee on Wednesdays, so I hired a room, and I put Dr. Swami, fortune teller, $2 readings. And for the whole day, they came in the end. I said, I'm not going to take your money. I couldn't have really taken. But for the whole day, they came in, and I was a fortune teller, faking. But then there began to happen to me the thing that does happen to fortune tellers, and which is the occupational disease of fraudulence. Fortune tellers, they have a name for it. It's called becoming a shut-eye. And a shut-eye in the argot of these crooks is the fella who begins to believe himself. So you make these wild guesses. One of them explained it to me, says, suppose you're a night clerk in a hotel. First, when you get a job, fella comes in, wants a single room. You look how good his luggage is, how good are his shoes, and you tell him, there's a room in the court, there's no room, or yes, sir, depending on various pieces of evidence. Says, suppose you've been a night clerk long enough, you glance, and you tell him, suppose you've been a night clerk a little longer, you don't have to look. You've seen it. The computer has made all of those deductions without you being conscious of it, so the mind reader gets it that he, without thinking, does it. And then they say, it's true. And a woman came to me at the end of my career as a fraudulent fortune teller in a bright print dress, sat down looking perfectly all right. And I said, you lost your husband last week. She burst into tears. She had. Then I quit. Terrible. It's not psychic. It's not undoubtedly, there was evidence of a tragedy. There was all kinds of things that went into my computer and got processed without me crookedly thinking, what am I going to say to her? And I think that's how it works. The 10-day Queen's Week celebration of Victoria's Diamond Jubilee commenced with the opening of a new permanent display of stolen artifacts. 10 polished oak electric-lit plexiglass vitrines were installed in the grand vestibule at Windsor Castle, creating what was billed at the time as a museum of relics of past sovereigns. From India to Ghana, from Sudan to Nigeria, and across the British Empire, objects taken in the process of deposing kings, emirs, and sultans were brought out of storage and installed in part of the State Departments used to receive international guests. Victoria even received a dog named Luti, a Pekingese lion dog depicted here sitting on a red cushion in front of a Japanese vase. Beside a dog are a bunch of flowers and his collar, on which 2 little bells are sewn. You see, when the painter was asked to sketch Luti, he was told he must put something to show its size, and since Luti was remarkably small. Luti had been found by Captain John Hardun of the 99th Regiment after Summer Palace near Beijing had been looted in 1860. When he returned to England, he presented it to Queen Victoria for the Royal Collection of Dogs. Luti was considered the smallest and by far the most beautiful little animal that has appeared in this country. You know, and all these preoccupations of science fiction with things like overpopulation, the dangers of pollution, the misuse of science in the fields of, like, say, cloning, advanced biological research, development of synthetic bacteria against which we may have no defense, sinister developments one sees in computers and a sort of control over every aspect of our lives that advanced data processing techniques provide. On a huge range of themes, science fiction, since the days of Wells, has been remarkably accurate, I think, in predicting this sort of, very confused and uncertain response to these changes. The one mistake, in a way, the one way in which traditional science fiction handicapped itself was to project this very, very, very accurate predictions into the far future and into the outer space. So you have this sort of paradoxical thing of science fiction as bringing you the news, but it was simultaneously, as you were watching it was reenacting it as a sort of Star Trek episode, We were watching the news on television. We never actually saw the war in Vietnam. We only saw space war 1,000,000 years from now. This is a pity. It's one of the things that I tried in my small way to change when I started writing it. There was this paradox up to, I suppose, 1950s. One could assume this relationship between reality and fantasy was fairly clear-cut. Reality was the external world of work, industry, agriculture, wars, and fantasy. Fantasy was a world inside one's head, one's dreams, hopes, ambitions, and the like. But suddenly, by the 50s, everybody knows now, completely reversed on every level. Not just in terms of in Vietnam transmitted as a TV war or presidential elections as huge advertising campaigns, but even something like, flying to Paris from London. You didn't just buy a ticket, buy transportation. It's true today. You don't just buy a ticket. You're buying an image of an airline. You're buying, sort of, without realizing, you're buying smiles the hostesses give you. One sees in one's friends the way they sort of furnish their homes. There's a tremendous superabundance of fiction, of fantasy, of every kind. The one node of reality that's left, that's between our temples. The outer layer is made, the outer layer is made of discarded, whoa, sweaters. Wool sweaters, wool sweaters that have moth holes, or that someone sent through the washing machine, or they were ripped, whatever, falling out of fashion. I cut them up, and I pieced them together with other sweaters, and I used the cuffs of the sweater to be the cuff of the mitten. Then I lined them with fleece, which is also recycled material made out of plastic bottles, shredded plastic. I used recycled thread. I used all the threads from my grandmother's old sewing basket after she died. I look for thread at thrift stores. Usually I just buy the thread. Security. Security is mostly about making yourself a difficult target. It's like that joke where you go hiking with your friends and a bear attacks you. You don't need to be faster than the bear. You just need to be faster than your slowest friend, right? That's part of what we sell. Let's say a prospective customer comes to us and they say, oh, we like pay-as-you-go type of pricing, tell us more about that. Then we say, okay, well, this is how much you can use at peak capacity. Here's how much savings we can see in your case. And then the customer says, but how do I know I'm secure with your option? This is where we get him. This is where the heat turns up. We say, okay, well, let's take a look at what you're using right now and see if we can offer a comparable level of security. So they tell us about a setup of their data center. We say, oh, seems like you have level 3 security. We offer level 5. Are you really comfortable staying where you're at? The customer figures, okay, not only am I going to save money, I just became aware that I'm not as nearly as secure as I thought. We make it easy to migrate, difficult to leave. If you have a ton of data in a data center, you don't want to send it to us, you don't want to do it over the internet, okay. We'll send you an 18-wheeler filled with hard drives, plug it into a data center with a power-optic cable and then drive it across the country back to us after filling it up with your stuff. Huh? It's true. We have this product. It's called Snowmobile. It's a gas-guzzling truck. There are no public pictures of the inside, but it's pretty cool. It's like a modular data center on wheels, and customers rightly expect that if they load that truck with all their important data, they want security for that truck. So there's an armed guard in at all times. It's pretty easy to sell. A customer looks at that option, and they say, yeah, of course I want a giant truck and a guy with a gun to move my data, not some crappy system that I developed on my own. But it has become somewhat fashionable lately to proclaim oneself a communist on the internet. I think it's hilarious to watch 12 million communists collectively try to figure out what stocks are for the first time. Of course, nobody has a job today. In the 60s, an entire job was press the button in an elevator, paint someone's name on a door. There was a job for every goddamn thing. People no longer make money. They score it. Communists aren't what they used to be. Now we have communists who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But that's okay. That's okay. That's just fine. You probably walked in here thinking that was going to be a handicap. Thinking we wanted people who knew something about the medium. Maybe even thinking there was all kinds of technical mumbo jumbo to learn. You were dead wrong. We're all interested in one thing. Can you tell a story? Can you make us laugh? Can you make us want to break out, enjoy a song? Is that more than one thing? Okay. The point is, I run this dump. And I don't know the technical mumbo jumbo. Why do I run it? I got horse sense, goddammit. Showmanship. Coffee? Thank you, that's it.
Mala. It's so low compared to this one. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. This is the last performance of almost 3 weeks performances, of 3 weekends performances at least, of Nora Turato's Pool 5. And my name is Janevski. I'm a curator at the Media Performance Department here at MoMA and also curator of this project with a series of amazing colleagues that I will mention later. And yes, so this is the post-performance talk that is also live streamed as well. The performance was live streamed all over the world, we hope. So we hope to have audiences all over the world. So it's like also good evening for some of you on the other side. And Nora, free weekends.
Yeah.
Done. Incredible, no?
Yeah, I mean, I endured. And it's actually easier than I thought it would be. I was a bit scared that it would be a bit too much, but then you're in it, and then you just kind of,
Then you go.
yeah.
And also, it's a very special moment, I think, for us here at MoMA, because this is the first performance in the studio. Right now, we are, just to give you context also for the audience online, we are, like, I'm looking as if the audience were somewhere there, but we are in the Kravis studio, which is a space for performance and media here at MoMA. And the last live performance we had 2 years ago. So there was like this break because of, well, no, why? Because of COVID. So this is like also a very emotional and important moment to have performance back and have it also with you. And maybe we start from what we have behind, no? Because it's not really, we were laughing a lot that we have basically a performance space with like boxes of books behind. They've like fallen from the sky, but they haven't. They've been shipped from Amsterdam when Nora is based. And there, in those boxes, you can find the book Pool 5, which is also the title of the performance. And in the book, basically, Nora is collecting fragments of sentences of text that she here read everywhere, like newspaper, advertising, emails exchanged, thoughts, and so on. And this is what makes the script of the amazing performance that you just saw. And so, Nora, I know this is something I've been asking you almost every time, but I think it's important to once again remind us, how do you work with the language? How do you work with the script? How do you work with the book?
Well, I think I just work the way any of us does, work with language, as in reading it. It's just that I kind of stop and I take it. So I just kind of try to follow really carefully what I read, what I look at, and I just try to take a moment to take it, to copy paste it, or to write it down, or whatever. And it's just kind of, it started off very, it didn't start in any kind of way that I thought it would be something. But then it just kind of kept on happening, and then it became this like a giant pile of things that I felt really sad just like not showing. And then that's how the first book came, because it just, I felt like, let's just print it out. But then it became also kind of a weird feeling when I looked at the book. I felt, oh wow, that's kind of encapsulated a year, or it's a kind of a hard copy. If aliens would come and they would ask, so what's up? And then I could give them that book, and they would be like, oh, that's what you've been up to. So I felt like it was kind of a like annual report of culture in language, and then it kind of kept on happening, and now Pool 5 is here.
And we were. I was also scheduled to have a performance 2 years ago, May 20th, I remember the date. And we produced Pool 4 for that occasion, and then we had to postpone, and so here we are with Pool 5. And I like how you said in an interview how actually Pool 5 really helped you to cope with the pandemic, because you said immediately when we were like, oh, it's not happening, you were like, okay, we need to do Pool 5. It cannot stay on Pool 4.
Yeah, because I remember when the book went to print, and I was still not sure what's happening. I remember last 3 pages in a book, there's like COVID somewhere in China, is mentioned like just as a joke, and so nobody really thought it would be anything serious. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing kind of switched, and I was thinking, oh my God, but this is like a kind of it's like a kind of a moment where actually you can start maybe see something happening, in this, there's a switch. So that's what, and yeah, it felt great to work on something in a time when like everybody kind of struggled finding something to do. I had some structure, even though it was just like a pages file, but it was something that I could rely upon,
And how do you, I mean, because the book, it's really like a lot of pages, a few hundred pages, and then the script is 25 minutes. How do you work on the script?
It's the same thing. So it's kind of constantly sifting through stuff. So in a way, stuff makes it into a book. And of course, the book is, compared to everything I've read, is less. And then some things just kind of keep on coming back into my head, Some things I keep on remembering, or I keep telling about it. Oh, I read this thing, and da, da, da. And those things kind of end up making it into performance, kind of almost like naturally. things sift through, and some things are just less good than others. Some things sound good. Some things are interesting to share more than others.
So it's a rigorous, intuitive strategy, basically.
Yeah, it's like a kind of a sifting. It's like an algorithm of my own, which is probably influenced by a bunch of other algorithms that are not my own.
There is something I was just talking with someone on the previous performance, the way that you're like collecting language, you know, this found language, that you're not revealing the sources. So like the mittens are Bernie's mittens. I love that part, so I think it's nice to share that. And you know, the data that is going from one part to another in the truck with the gun is like the Amazon. You share this like really surreal interview. So you're like really pointing on the absurdity of the times we're living, or the absurdity of the world we are living. But there is like also some precision in what you're doing, I find. And I think it's also due to the performance, to the fact that you've been really working on your voice, and because the voice is really the medium, the channel that things go through. So I know you've been taking also like voice coaches, like you've been really focused on your voice. And I know when I saw you 4 years ago, it's like it's a difference. So if you can say more about this like voice like work that you have been doing, which is really incredible.
Well, I think it's just, I was kind of, when the whole pandemic happened, I was, of course, as everyone was looking back and kind of thinking what's next and stuff. And then I was thinking more and more of this kind of very peculiar thing that happens to young artists. They get a lot of attention, and then they are like all hyped up, and they start to kind of believe in the work, and they start to kind of just keep on doing the work, you know? But actually, not always this attention you get is not always because the work is incredible or amazing or there, but it's just kind of like more constellation of events that kind of brought you somewhere, you know, because you met some people, your work was interesting, you did something a bit different, you know. But then I thought, okay, well, at least I could do now is actually work on it really seriously, you know. So I really wanted to just spend all the time I could using the time to really, you know, own it and to really feel like, you know, I could do Shakespeare if I needed to, you know? So this is what was kind of a goal, you know? Because often I think in performance art, you know, real dancers go to ballet, or not real, but I mean, you know, like kind of somebody who wants to seriously devote themselves to craft, they very easily go to theater because it's of infrastructure, it's so much easier to deal with. You have like schedule, you have producers. So in a way, if you want to be serious, it's so easy to leak out of art. And then I felt like how interesting would it be actually if you try to do that as part of the arts, you know?
Yeah, because as you said, in terms of craft, I know that a lot has been written about your performance through the lens of internet, through the lens of like something that is fast, that like the subconscious of internet. And I know we talked and you said, well, I actually think my work is closer to Trisha Brown's accumulation. And I think this craft that you're mentioning, this precision, and something, also you said that you are drilling and drilling and drilling to like be able to perform, to come to a certain, I wouldn't say perfection, because not, but to a certain level at least.
Or the level of control, I think that's, I mean, yeah, internet is there, you know, it's just so easy to read on internet. Why would I go to library if I can be on internet? So it's a kind of, you know, but I think I could do pretty similar thing with in a library, you know. So in a way, I don't find internet to be as defining. I mean, of course, people see that, and everybody sees something, you know, everybody sees through their lens and their perspective, and they kind of get twisted with their baggage. And in a way, but for me, what's really, I think, what I find interesting in my work is this thing where you kind of take something that it's just passed you through on Twitter, but you decide to drill it for like weeks, you know, and to really get to like phonetically to like a tiniest details of breath and where you're going to take a breath, where you're going to take it, you know, so. And I feel like kind of owning that and like kind of getting it to your nervous system and your muscle memory so deep, even though it just passed you. It's kind of almost stopping and saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, let me get this in, you know.
It's a dance, basically.
Yeah,
That's
it's a dance.
Yeah,
I really feel like it's
yeah.
yeah.
And, you know, like, I remember when I saw your first performances, I was very struck because I was like, oh, I haven't really seen something like this. But then it felt very simple, you know, you come in front of the people in your jeans and sneakers, and you talk. But then actually it requires a lot of work, a lot of commitment, a lot of practice, like a lot of like, you know, like voice, like a really powerful voice, but also courage, I think. Because it's just, you and those boxes anyway. And it's been like this for, like, as I said, like 3 weekends, like twice a day. You never performed so much for so long.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to kind of not have anything to hide behind, you know, and just having to do every day the same thing. You, of course, when you know it so well, you kind of have to keep on remembering that people who come to see it for the first time, you know, and it's like, okay, they didn't see this yet, you know, because you get so bored with it and so tired of it. But then, so I had like first few days, I had like a big issue with it because I was really, oh my God, this is so stupid. This is so, you know, this very kind of insecure. But then I realized I just have to keep on working on it, you know, so then I kind of changed it and I started to work on it more, you know, and kind of think about the movement and really try to work with the performance as I perform it. And then it became super easy. Then it became exciting and fun, you know.
I know this is another question that it's pretty often, and it's like difficult not asking you, because you were in a punk band in high school. I know you're always like, oh, whatever, punk band. But, you know, it's kind of a cool thing. You were in a punk band in high school. And do you think that, like, the fact of performing, you know, in front of the audience already then kind of informed what you did now?
No, I think so, because I was like 15 when I started to make, like, kind of perform it. So in a way there is, I mean, it's a knowledge and it's an experience thing, and you have to perform. You cannot just like visualize it and then go and do it, because there is a certain level of, you know, you have to control things, and it's really, and also you have to kind of constantly plug out any kind of doubt, you know, you have to be able to enter some tunnel. So it's actually kind of very mindful and very weird thing to do. So in a way, yeah, but it's also kind of nice to be able to do something that, you know, and then you look around and it's like, who else can do that? You know, like, who else does it? And then it's kind of, you know, that I'm proud of.
You should be proud. And the book, I mean, also you said that when you were like performing in a part of the punk band, you were more interested in lyrics than in the performance itself. So there is like this constant like back and forth between language and performance, and as it's also then mediated by graphic design. And you are trained as a graphic designer.
Yeah, I went to study graphic design because I felt I wanted to make music, and I felt I could never explain to my parents I'm not going to study. You know, it's like
they're here, by the way.
It's like a kind of, you know, it's like a post-war country. You have to go study. You know, it's like you're not going to like not study. So in a way, it felt okay. Graphic design, I can like do something, you know, there. But then somehow, while I was studying graphic design, I really got into it. You know, I really became interested in typography, and I really wanted to kind of, so I devoted myself to that, and I kind of forgot all about music.
You even designed a milk, you showed me.
Yeah, I showed her because 1 year between, my gap year between bachelor and master's, I've worked in food architecture. So I made milk packaging, so I showed it to her. It was actually quite a good milk packaging. So yeah, so I mean, in a way that, but then also kind of it's comparable, you know. Graphic design is a certain type of voice that you change according to what typography you use or how you set things. You can do a lot of kind of tone things that you do with your voice, you can do with typography in a way. So it's not so far from each other in a way, and they kind of complement each other, I think.
And you work very often with Sabode, with the graphic designer Sabode for your books, and they're also very drilled, I would say. They're like...
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that it's also kind of, you know, with the graphic designers love to like, what kind of paper, what kind of, and I just really, these kind of decisions, I'm really, you know, it's like, okay, you know, so it's really nice to work with someone who's actually devoted to that thing, you know, and then, oh, but this paper is actually better than this one. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So in a way, it's also really nice to have work with someone and see your work come through the lens of another graphic designer. And in a way, not always kind of clench to your work as if it's like a ultimate, you know, thing, but I kind of learn to let go and like, oh yeah, what you can do with this. And I think that's always so fun.
And your work, apart performances and the books, the 5 pools, they're also, you're also doing like installations, like print installations with language, and sometimes you even perform within. This is like the barest maybe space.
In the beginning, you know, of course, when you start doing things, then you're kind of trying things out and you're a bit confused. So then, of course, I was mixing it a little bit, but now I'm kind of trying to keep it separate, because in a way, I feel like I can strive to achieve the same thing, but with completely different medium. So in a way, the print work is not, it's like painted. And in a way, it's also kind of very laborious thing. I work with Clay Storm, he's there. So he helps me paint the paintings, and that's also kind of almost the same thing as performance, you know. It's like kind of very meticulously crafted, but then you come in a room and you think it's vinyl, you know. So in a way, this kind of very effortless delivery of something that took hours to make, you know, and kind of owning the through craft again, you know.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I know we should open to the public, so someone is keeping time. I don't wanna, because you and I, we can go for a long time, but I don't know. I feel that somehow, like, so it's a lot about found language, and you said already a lot about the language, but while I was looking at you, like, because I saw several performances, there is somehow movement is entering more and more in your performances.
Who would have said that?
Yeah.
You know, I think I think somehow it started to happen that I'm more and more. I think it's because I was working so hard with voice, and that's just muscles, and it's like kind of. So I think I kind of got the gist of a dance by working with my, you know, vocal apparatus. You know, so in a way I kind of understood what it is through that, and then I've kind of accidentally, you know, spontaneously started to leak to other parts of my body because it's the same kind of, you know, I just didn't know, you know? And I think like I kind of cracked it by starting to work with my voice. What is that kind of relationship to movement and proprioception and muscles and you know, control, which is actually all in the end dance.
And maybe we should say, just, I think it's also to mention her, and it's a great also anecdote that the person you're working on your voice, she's working with main actors, Hollywood actors, in particular foreign actors. So it's true that I remember the first evening that you had your performance, and like, full disclosure, we both come from Croatia, so we were supposed to have a similar accent, but everybody would come to me, she said, oh my God, she has no accent. I was like, thank you, I know I do, but I feel that,
but
like,
I have the accent when I talk normally. No, I didn't, because the thing is that I learned these scripts so well that it's so easy for me to, you know, but it's funny because accent is not so much about phonetically correctly pronouncing things, but also it's about a line. Like Americans have a different type of a line where they just like kind of more talk. We have more breath support. So and like and Slavic people, you know, more here. So in a way, so in a way, I just go back into my like alignment, you know, which is like a Slavic alignment. And then if I go back into the American one, I can just go more like this. So, but in a way, it doesn't make sense. It feels kind of weird to hang out with people I know forever and like go, you know. So in a way, it's just I stay there. But I fixed a few things that I thought that make me sound a bit more dumb, like THs and Ls and stuff. So in a way, I kind of like tweaked a few things.
I don't know if there is a question from the audience, and there are no microphones, so when you say the question, I have to repeat it. So, you know. COVID protocol. So there's one here and one there. You can go.
Yes, you were talking about accents and slipping into different things, and I was wondering if you considered all these different bits that you do during the show as characters or as these things funneling through you or you through them.
I will just repeat it first. So the question was related to the different different accents and intonations, and so whether you're thinking about characters or those, you formulated it so nicely, or
As you going through the characters
oh,
yeah.
Are you go through the characters or the characters go through you?
I think it's kind of, I mean, it's a bit of a weird part of my practice that it's always kind of weird to talk about because it easily gets quirky, like a kind of a bit like, woohoo, you know, but there is for sure like a little bit of a kind of a channeling thing going on, as in like you let your brain and, you know, logic and everything become that, you know, and it's something I'm only doing more and more now, and I'm learning how to do it more and more. And it's a very weird thing. You kind of have to let that person go in your brain and do the thing that this person does in their brain or something, you know. I mean, it sounds weird. It's hard to explain, but there's definitely kind of a thing of like, okay, you know, jump in, kind of a channeling moment thing. But it sounds so like, it's so freaky to talk about it, you know. It's like kind of...
Yeah, so the question is about the audience. That's a great question, and the interaction that happened with you and the people in the room.
I mean, that's kind of the most unpredictable part of it, because it's just like 11 o'clock, for instance, performance, it's much more it's less people and different audience, and energy completely shifts. So in a way, you can like try to strive to control that, but it's no way to control it. In a way, somebody can laugh. And then also people don't laugh unless one person laughs. So in a way, people also react the way people next to them react. So there is like, it's really, everybody's kind of under influence. So audience is under influence of the audience. I'm under the influence of the audience. So there's like a kind of a whole, there's so many things being like circulating, and it's so hard to control, other than just kind of trying to learn a few things that you can do when like some things go wrong or something, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a great question also, because, not to enter now into performance in the museum, but it's true that this is a performance in the museum, in art institutions and gallery recently. They've been more like installations, so that people have this longer time to come in and out, while your performance requires a certain focus. I mean, not necessarily because, you're not like telling a story, but require a focus also to go into these levels and to follow you. And even if we are in a contained space, it's not a theater. So the fact of people coming in and out, it's difficult to control and should not be controlled in a way, but it can also be sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Because I feel like what's been the last 10 years in performance art has been this thing of like bodies being treated as installation, just to come through, it's going on for 8 hours, durational thing. And, that's a thing in itself, but I think there should be a space also for performance that is kind of borrowing more from theater, as in like it's 30 minutes long, you have to sit down. And it's just, I feel like a lot of people are still not, there's confusion about it still, I feel. And it makes sense because just so many things were so durational. So in a way, I feel like I'm kind of also just struggling with that a little bit at times, but it's also interesting.
Yeah, I like what you said, and that's why I took my phone. You said like empathy is gone online, and online. This is from the Art Forum article, and it's nice to feel for a performer.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of how we behave, like when the performance works, is when you kind of feel for performer and you kind of behave also accordingly to emotion. You kind of, it's like almost if somebody talks with a microphone in a super loud room, you're more likely to talk over that person and kind of not care. But if a person doesn't have a microphone and it's like silence, and then you're just like, okay, let it, So it's a kind of empathy thing that happens. And I think that's maybe when the performance really works, when you start to feel for that person doing it.
Yeah, that's why we love performance, I think, yeah. Some more questions? Yes.
No. Not happening. Sorry.
I will tell you later.
It's bad.
Okay, and they're like actually really good questions. So the first one is about how Nora is very outspoken, and we have talked a lot about it. I'm intersecting some comments to your question, because we've been like very often also people will go out and say, oh my God, this was really intense, and then something that I think both share is like this bit of version of the intense, particularly related to a woman. And so the question was like, you're so outspoken, and like in New York, everybody's outspoken. Like it's not something that people will be surprised. And then Johnny said, I'm Swiss. And so if you do it in Switzerland, people will be, oh my God, what is going on? So how it is to perform it in New York when everybody's so outspoken. And the second question, it was, again, like a really good question that I wanted to ask you too. Like this is MoMA, it has a symbolical and many other values, like one of the institutions globally, we would say. So how it was to prepare this for MoMA, or whether it's like just an institutional context, or it was like you were thinking on the MoMA context, which, by the way, I think it was really important what you said at the very beginning about young artists.
What was I mean, I performed in Switzerland, and it was funny because I've been performing a lot in Europe, but I've never performed in States before MoMA. So in a way, everybody, I remember, like a lot of people told me, "Oh, we don't know how it's gonna work." You know, it's also, things can bounce many ways. You know, it can be like, "Oh, that's amazing. Oh, this is terrible." You know, and it's like, so it was hard to kind of anticipate that. So I kind of tried not to think about it, and also it's so hard to reflect of like why. I mean, of course, if you go to different countries, it's different energy during the performance, and yeah, but I think it's also, there's a certain level of musicality to it and rhythm that it's basically, I don't think it has so much to do with like always the content itself. And I also don't think that, like, I don't think that that a native speaker would dabble this way with language the way I do. I think it's like a kind of like there's a certain like immigrant grip thing to it, which I think kind of also adds an other layer to it. So that's my theory about it. And MoMA, yeah, I mean, definitely it's kind of feels it's nice to feel that work is kind of becoming important. I think that's kind of the weirdest, but also the coolest part about performing in MoMA, is that you feel like, wait a minute, you know, this is like actually kind of has some historical value to do this. And that's really weird thing to realize. But it's also been, and it's also, you can react different ways to that. I reacted in a way that I wanted to make it as good as possible, you know, and I wanted to push it as far as possible. So it's also exciting, but I don't know what now.
Yes? So this was a question for Stuart Comer, who is a chief curator in media and performance, and who also we have to thank, because when I said Nora Turato 5 years ago, he said yes, go. So it was without his trust and push, this wouldn't even happen. So the question was related a lot about documentation, because a lot of younger artists are like also resisting documentation, and the fact that we were like, you're resisting the screen, but you're taking for the screen, and that is becoming also part of your body. It's becoming part of your practice, and that. But at the same time, this is happening on the screen, like right now, and the performance was live stream, and how this relate also to the book and to your work.
It's actually so funny, because it's exactly what I was thinking while I was doing this performance. I was thinking, my God, I'm just putting this back on YouTube. It's like, so that was actually kind of a funny moment there. And it's like, it's funny because I was thinking when I was doing the Orson Welles on the Cavett show from 70s, and I was like, this is like 70s show on YouTube. I'm now performing it in MoMA. It's coming back on YouTube.
Arrogant part.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. So it's like a kind of like a crazy thing in a way. So I was just thinking about that also. But in a way, I was thinking a lot about it because I don't like to watch my documentation, and I do think that video documentation or any kind of documentation of my performance kind of sucks. You know, it's like not the same thing. So in a way, I do have like very bitter feelings about it, but I've decided not to control it because it feels a little bit weird to now start patrolling something that you're taking from where it's not patrolled. So in a way, you have to kind of let go. So it's kind of a conscious decision to let it go, even though I hate it.
But the book is a good way of also distributing performance.
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
nice because there's control there, and it's kind of, you know, it's not just. It's like there's so many things with screen. There's a certain lack of empathy, of connection, things are different on screen. I mean, even if you look at how people act in theater versus how they act on screen, the movements on screen are so much more subtle and smaller, and they have to fit in a camera. Well, in theater is much more makeup even. I mean, everything is different, you know, for screen and for real life. So in a way, this is made for real life. And in that way, it kind of loses a lot online, but there's nothing I can do.
Because we all have, like, we're having our masks here. The audience here have a mask, and there is this cover of flash art that I like a lot when you're like seated, you're like doing a performance in Paris, masked, and you're seated and you have the hands in your head. And I felt always that I thought it was always like a very good image of this moment of COVID in relation also to performance and live art. How was it performing with the mask?
I mean, that was the biggest torture ever. It was really, because I just felt, you know, you cannot say no to do a performance at the big institute. You know, so you're kind of, okay, I should be excited, but then at the same time you want to be careful. So it was really hard. And it's like, I mean, basically performing with the mask is a disaster. It's because there's a lot of breath. Actually, I didn't even know how much actually breath is, you know, I mean, I should have known that. But anyway, it was really, really terrible. But in the end, the photo was, it's just funny how things work, you know, you go through so much, it was 30 minutes of like worst torture ever. And then that photo, and then you have some like dear feelings about it, you know. That's strange how things twist, you know. I think your body kind of forgets the bad things, and then you're like, oh, that's a great photo.
More questions? Yes.
Can just find it in a bookstore and then see like a compendium or a year according to Nora Turato. That's how you envision people interacting with that form separately?
So the question is, how is the book work? How do people interact with the book?
Well, each book is very small print run, so it's 500 copies of each. So in a way, most of them are gone. Like the first one, actually produced with my own money, and I was paying 12 months installments to a printer. So I really worked hard to sell out that book. So that book is gone. I have maybe like few copies at home. And then Pull 2, 3, 4, 5 were produced by institutions. So there I was a bit more like whatever, you know, but then they also kind of, so I'm not really actively working on it. So in a way, there's one bookstore in Amsterdam, Sans Serif, that has them, and that's just friends from school. And they have them because, you know, they're close by and I like them. But I'm never really actively sending it out to bookstores or anything. So in a way, most of them are sold out. Or, you know, here at MoMA now, there's some. And you kind of have to catch it at the time, at the moment. Yeah, they're here. It's like a moment. But also really always liked this. I mean, because I was studying graphic design, and there's always these books, you know, I would buy books. They were cool at the moment because I knew somebody designed it. And then 5 years later, they would be like $1,000 on Amazon. And I was like, whoa, but actually you're in it, you know it. And I always felt so cool about like, I bought that book for 25 euros. And I was like, I don't know, like, so it's like there's this kind of being inside and getting it on time, which I really liked with books and kind of appreciating them. And I always wanted to have that kind of thing. So that's why the print run is smaller than it should be, because I like the idea of actually not being all over the place, you know. Everything is like so easy to get these days, so it's also nice to kind of like have less of something. That's basically kind of the thought.
More questions? Yes? So So the question is about humor and sarcasm in the voice and in the performance, and the fact that it's a lot about anxiety, the content itself, but then it's more cathartic when you're performing. I hope that that was right.
Yeah. So thank you for saying that. That's really nice to hear. I think, because I was actually at one point I was always kind of, maybe sarcasm is like a bad thing, you know, maybe it's like, it gets a bad rep, you know, and also there's this thing with humor in arts that it kind of devalues it or something. But then at the same time, there's this cathartic quality to it. And actually humor is just so important, I think, to deal with tough things. Like first thing, when things get tough, first thing that disappears is jokes, you know, and you could see that also last 2 years, how like jokes really fast disappear. Humor is the first one that kind of, it's a way of coping, but at the same time, it's also a thing that it's really fragile, really fast. So in a way, I really like to keep that in my
And
work.
also not taking oneself seriously.
Not
no?
too serious. I think there's also just like, I really don't like when people take themselves too serious. I think that's also like, I really don't want to be that person.
Yes. Thank you. So the question is about English that we are all using, and the fact, are you translating something for English, or it's always English? And what is your relationship to English? Also, when you're like traveling everywhere, you're always performing in English.
It's funny because there's this part in the performance. I mean, the performance is full of these subtle things where my logic is I'm internally very excited about the logic of it, but then nobody really gets it. But there's this part where it's like, this is my house, my town, my opinion, my lawn. That's kind of a really bad translation of Miroslav Krleža, which is like a really famous Croatian writer.
He's like a Croatian Sartre.
Yeah, exactly. And that's Na rubu pameti, on the edge of reason, and it's because I was trying to because I loved that book when I was a teenager, and then I was trying to read it in English, and I couldn't. The translation is just it's like it translates it so badly, but then in a way it's kind of funny to use it in a performance. So in a way, sometimes bad translation can also be very interesting. So yeah, there's parts that I translate or I take translated or
But I guess also what, and correct me if wrong, like, and you mentioned that the fact also being foreigner, and it gives you this freedom with English that you don't have when you're a native speaker.
Yeah, because it would be very hard on Croatian. I have so much, I would really not be able to do a lot of things I do.
More question? How are we with time? We can chat more. And I like coming back to the question, and I think I also asked you that in an interview we had, the fact that you're like so young and you already had a performance at MoMA. And for me, it was so important to see, because we started to work 4 years ago, and then because of the pandemic, so it's got postponed. So being in conversation 4 years ago, how you took it seriously, and the fact of not taking yourself seriously, it's not just in your performance, but it's also how you work.
I mean, I was always kind of, I have this weird thing, and it's just kind of idea that actually with hard work, you can do a lot. I mean, hard work as in like precisely hard work, not, because you can make a lot of hard work and make a lot of mess and like not do anything. But if you're kind of really focused and very precise where you put very hard work in, I think you can really get a lot out of it. So it was actually I find it very comforting to work hard on something, because then at least I have that, because art doesn't have intrinsic value. There is no reason to say this is better, this painting is great. So in a way I have to find something that I can say this is valuable. And at least hard work, I can okay, at least I worked my ass off on it, So take it or, So I think that's kind of a coping thing also a bit.
Yeah, makes sense. And shall we talk about fashion? No? You're bored?
Sure.
No, just because basically before MoMA, like very recently, you start performing like in everyday clothes. No, before that you were like in very fashionable clothes. Can I say fashionable?
Very fashionable clothes.
And I remember when I saw you the first time in fashionable clothes, there's again something like a distance. I also felt that you were not there. Oh my God, I'm here in my Balenciaga, but there was like, ha ha, there is like, look at this. Like, so there's always this fact that you're like a little bit also making fun of yourself. Look, now I come here and perform in Balenciaga, but people took it seriously.
Yeah.
So I remember they will be, oh my God, does she really need that? And I was like trying to explain, like, what don't you think? And everybody were a little bit criticized. Anyway, people like to criticize. We know that. But then that was like a way of, I wouldn't say undermine it a little bit, because I still think when you are like a young woman artist and you're doing what you do, it's not easy. It's easy always to find something, you know. And then I also found that, and we talked about that. I know you talk with other like friends and peers, and then one moment you decide like, stop, I go with jeans.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it was really on purpose, because I felt I was younger and I was a little bit more like kind of reactive, and I felt all the performances, everybody were like so like everyday looking, you know, like this Adidas tracksuit and like, or like, I felt really annoyed by it. I was like, why don't you just dress up, you know, like why don't you just come and like show respect? And I felt also there was something, you know, I really wanted to dress the way I would dress if I would go for a wedding, or like, you know, like something like that, you know, kind of celebration, look at me, you know. And that was kind of the angle I was putting in, but I don't think that really, you know, people saw something else in it. I saw like kind of weird kind of, you know, Balkan, going for a wedding, showing respect thing, you know, instead of, because you know, when I was in art school, always like Norwegians and Swiss people always like looked so poor and so shabby. And then like people from like, you know, from ex-Yugoslavia, they would look all fancy. And I was like, oh, and then that really annoyed me, you know, because I felt like, okay, of course, you come from a shit place and there you dress more. You come from like Norway, you dress, you know.
You don't need to show any.
So in a way, it was always, so it really, I think it has to do with how you want to be presented and how you want it. So I really badly wanted to be respected, you know. And I think moment I kind of got that respect, I was like, okay, now I can do jeans, you know. So I think it was.
Can be Norwegian.
I can do like the whole like Norwegian stuff now. So I think that's kind of what it is, and it's nice. It's nice to, but I really also feel like it was important part of what I've done to have that fashion thing and to kind of get to that point where I was like done with it.
And I don't know if there are other questions. I promise this is the last one, because as I said, we can go forever. But have you been thinking about like singing, or that would be too much? Because there were moments, because I think, as you said, it's like repetitive. So I see how you're like changing, you're pushing yourself. There was a moment you were already singing.
I can now sing quite well, because the whole breath support thing, I figured, like a lot of things connected to dance and to singing, I figured out because they're all connected. So in a way, I can sing well now, but it's also felt a little bit too fast to really go there. Also, there's time, you know, to figure out. So what I'm now really excited about is just try to continue working and see where that can go, of movement, and there's time, you know. And it's better to do it, to take it one thing at a time than to like now stuff everything into it half-ass, you know. So I'm really excited to continue working, you know. That's kind of what, it's never done. I think that's kind of the feeling I have. It's like kind of like an iPhone, you update it. So in a way, I'm just really excited to update the thing now and to add things or to figure out things of what didn't work, what worked, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting how when we started, as you said, there was COVID, then there was Omicron, we had to postpone, there is like wars. Now there's like always something, and then once we talked, it was like there's always something actually. So it's also like, as you said, your pool, it's a little bit, I can already see pool 6 coming also with all the New York experience.
Yeah.
And but there is time, as you said, and it's good to take time. It's good, this like slowness. It's very good. There is an Croatian artist, Mladen Stilinovic, who is also in the collection on the second floor.
He takes his time.
He takes his time. Yeah. Actually, he said there's like no art without laziness, or you know, this fact that sounds really very difficult to imagine here in New York in particular. But like, let's take time. And also before ending, as you said, it's important to feel for the performer. It's important to show empathy for the performer. I would like really to thank the team, MoMA's team, who
that was
took care
amazing.
Of Nora. As I said, Stuart, who made it happen, my colleague Marta, from assistant curator for the media and performance, but there's a whole production team with Lizzie Gorfin, Kate Scherer, Jessie Gold, and Rivia Rousey, who were here every day, because, as I said, it looks simple. You come here, you talk, you go back, but believe me, it's a lot of work, and there is a lot of work of care, even if this world is very popular now. It was really real true care, and also to be able to hear us, to be able to have the books and everything that is around. I would also like to thank the AV team run with Paul Di Pietro and Omar and Mitch and Chris. It's been amazing As I said, we've been missing performance so much, and to be together again and make this happen was extraordinary. And Nora, thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
your
And also the
time
team
and
was
be so
I'm
great.
so spoiled now. I'm really scared to perform somewhere else now. Like with this team, this was really a great experience. It was so professional. I'm like thank you so much. This was cool.
Thank you. Thank you.